Here we go. Boy.
You ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
So we're back.
Hello, all.
Oh my god. Hello, all. How are you doing? Are your speakers blown?
Are your eardrums cracked?
Do they burst?
With such flavor. Ew. I just thought about that. Gross. Anyways, welcome back to the show. Sorry we didn't put out an episode last week, but we were knee-deep in some redwood trails along the California coast. And it was awesome. But we're back into it. We're talking about the Camino.
What is with that?
What?
We're back into it.
I'm not being loud. You're just being sensitive. It'll sound fine.
It'll sound great.
It'll sound amazing.
Hi guys, welcome to the Beanstalk Podcast, where we talk about everything travel.
Sharing first-hand travel advice and getting to the bottom of real-life experiences in the hopes to inspire you to get out there yourself.
This episode will be covering the next 5 days, which will be getting us to Santiago, and we'll be covering 119 kilometers or 74 miles.
Yeah, so a lot of people, this will be the end of the road for them because Santiago is technically like the finish line for the pilgrimage, but it was not our end. So we continued on to the coast, which will be next week's episode.
Yeah.
But we're going to start off with day 33, where we're leaving San Mamed, and we're going to be traveling a distance of 23.9 kilometers, or 14.9 miles, and we're going to be arriving in Vilacha.
Yeah, so we'll just hop right back into it.
Yeah.
So the walks that we noticed at this point started going through these little towns, and it had really pungent and obvious smells of cow shit. You could see
it was bad.
Piles all over the little roads into the town.
These didn't look like healthy cow.
It was just like sprayed.
Shits.
Like if someone had a shit hose.
It was horrible. I
and
felt bad for the
all
cows,
over, so.
but also bad for us.
Maybe there was nowhere where they just walked them, transferred them from little different gating things.
Yeah, it was like town to town.
Separate perimeters or something.
You'd sometimes walk into herds of cattle and you'd have to kind of I don't know how you are around cattle, but I was a little bit nervous at times. So I'm like, walking slowly. But yeah, it was stinky.
It was strong.
It was really strong. Pungent.
It wasn't just like a faint smell. It was definitely...
smack you in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at the morning, it was really foggy at first, but it did burn off later on, and then it did get sunny and hot.
Yeah.
And right once we got to Saria?
I think it's Saria,
I've heard both. I'm not sure which it is.
I'm not sure.
But we started seeing large groups of new people, because, at this point, it's been almost 5 weeks, and we were pretty familiar with who's been walking and seeing a lot of familiar faces.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was kind of like the crew that had started from the St. John was like the crew that we had been familiar with. So
yeah, but there was other people that started in like Burgos.
That's true, yeah.
But this, was the point where it's just this large influx of new people, because a lot of people do the minimum requirement, which is around the 100-kilometer mark. You have to do at least 100 kilometers to get the Compostela, or
it's like the certification at the end.
Basically.
Yeah, like you've completed this Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage, so here's your certificate.
The minimum amount you need to do to get that. Otherwise, if you do less than 100, then you can't get it.
Yeah, so a lot of
people do kind of like the bare minimum.
Yeah, and they say a lot of Spaniards, because it's like the thing to do in Spain. A lot of Catholics do this once a year. They'll do that bare minimum amount, so it's just an influx.
Yeah. So we started, and Oddly, it was it wouldn't be, or rarely it was just a few people. It was large groups, sometimes in double digits amount of, like in the teens of a group.
And sometimes
like
it would be
13 something. And
sometimes it would be like a busload. Like,
yeah, the bus would just drop off a ton of pilgrims. And
there was one time where it was like a bus of Asian tourists, and they unloaded right at this one stop. We had stopped for like a lunch or coffee or something, and we were in there ordering, and then we just come out, and it's just this like, dozens of tourists, and they're all very new because they're not looking weathered by the sun or the hike like we had been. And we actually watched a couple of them applying sunscreen in the most amount of doses that we've ever seen. There was one lady in particular who had a spray can of sunscreen, and she must have sprayed her face probably 15 times, I want to say.
Well, she was just kind of pointing it at her face, closing her eyes, holding her breath, and just unloading. Yeah. And it was hilarious because we were just sitting outside. I think I had a beer, and we were just having like a snack and something to drink. And she just came out and was just unloading.
Going to town. And there was another guy who rubbed sunscreen on his face to where his entire face was white. It's like the page that we're looking at. It was like so white you could not see his normal skin. We were like, what? Oh my God. Why? But I don't know. They were being very cautious of the sun. Maybe they're just really susceptible to, sunburns, or I'm not sure.
I don't know, but it seemed like overkill. I mean, it was too much,
It was pretty nuts.
I think Spencer had dubbed all the new faces Piernas Blancas.
Yeah.
Or, white legs. Because we had obviously been out in the sun and outdoors for quite some time to where, all of our arms and legs were just super tan.
Yeah.
So it was very, aside from the new faces, I mean, you could tell who was new to the trail as it was just by looking at the skin
the backs of their legs, really, when they were walking away. You're like, oh my God, that's a fresh pair of legs.
Yeah. So, whereas all the other people had really tan legs.
Oh my God, I think those...
It was very obvious who had been on the trail and who hadn't.
That was the tannest my legs have ever been in my life. So, yeah.
And we had some sweet sock tans.
We had some awesome sock tans. That was another thing that I don't know that we had mentioned in the past with walking the Meseta stretch. There's no shade, so there was literally, you had to get really creative with your sun coverage. And I think I used like my bandana tucked up into my hat, and then also I had like a buff that I would wrap around my arm or one of my legs, because literally while you're walking west, the sun is hitting you
on the left side.
And that's the only side that it's hitting you on. Your other side's casting a shadow, so there's a very significant unevenness in your tan, which is kind of funny. But so this day we're walking, and it was kind of getting, I remember I had kept crossing Jacoby's path several times, and I just had my headphones in and was rocking out to some tunes, and so I was trying not to let the surge of new Piernas Blancas bug me, because you really did have to kind of weave through these big packs of new pilgrims. But I did see that Jacoby was kind of struggling with it, and I remember as we're walking into this next town, I had asked Jacoby, I noticed that she never listens to music. She never had her headphones in, so...
I don't think she had headphones.
I don't think she brought them with her, so she was just going straight, just no tunes at all. But I had asked her, because we had started pacing up, so we were kind of walking alongside each other into this town. I said, hey, do you mind if I play this song? And so it was this song by one of my favorite bands called Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. The song itself is called Man on Fire. And I remember us just having kind of like a moment with that song that I think she really kind of appreciated that song at that moment, because I think it lifted her spirits a little bit. So it was cool, and I think that she really enjoyed the music, and maybe it turned her on to a band that she maybe listens to still and likes. So that was a kind of cool moment.
At the end of the day, we ended up making it to our albergue, which was a South African couple that was running it, and it was called Casa Banderas. And
such a fun word to say.
Huh?
Those words to put together are just fun to say.
I feel like it forces
Casa
you
Banderas.
to give it an accent.
Maybe because it's Antonio Banderas, and like, you know, you kind of think of him and his accent, and it's very thick. And
that's his house. Antonio Banderas' house.
I forgot about that. I saw him there at dinner that night. Yeah, he was kind of quiet and just sat in the corner. Oh, he said he greeted everyone. Yeah. Damn it, our story's mixed. They're not buying it anymore.
So anyway, we kept hearing rumors of this other South African lady because we were walking with Jacoby. Everyone kept asking her if she had met this other. Oh, there's another South African named Zon, and she's been walking. Have you met her? And everyone kept asking her, and you know, we hadn't met her yet. And so we finally did meet her here. And we ended up having dinner there, which was super good. And we had these green peppers. The couple was really nice. And we also met the hospitalero that was volunteering there, who was a guy from Greenland named Knut. And after dinner, he just shared his whole life story, which was pretty powerful and emotional. And it left us all pretty choked up, including himself. But it was, he said he had never shared that with anyone before, so it was pretty special. And we felt a pretty strong connection just from that.
We were lucky enough to be at the same albergue, and were able to connect with him enough so that he was able to tell us his really touching story. So it was quite the night. It was pretty special.
Yeah, and I think he also felt something with us too, because we had kind of agreed that once we did get to Santiago, we had mentioned that we were going to be walking to the coast, and he said that his volunteer stage or phase, or however long he was going to be volunteering at this albergue, was going to be up soon, and he was thinking about joining us then.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he, you know, it was definitely one of those connections that you feel with somebody, and we actually still keep in touch this day. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then, next day is going to be day 34. And we're going to be leaving from where we were, which was Valacha, and making our way to Portos, which was 21.4 kilometers or 13.3 miles. And this was the day that was my brother's wedding. It started off being really foggy all day until just the end of the walk. So basically the whole day, which led up to about 1:30 or so. It was pretty much foggy the whole time.
Maybe set the mood.
Yeah, it totally set the mood. And for some reason, I don't know, I was having kind of a hard time and feeling homesick. But I also ended up getting a blister on my left heel. My first blister, we're almost 5 weeks in, and I had got a blister on my left heel. And it was just weird because we were so close to the end, and I was like, why now? It just seemed really, I don't know, hard to fathom that I'd gone this far and now I'm going to get a blister. But I guess they can come up at any point. And that was my day. And I just kind of physically felt a bit out of it. I think I was kind of emotionally drained. So I was having a bit of a hard day that day, or this day.
Yeah, I was feeling it too, but not, because I've known Carl's younger brother, Walter, for a while. We went to high school together, and that's kind of how Carl and I first met, was through Walter, hanging out when we were younger. But so I was definitely missing the fact that we were not there for his wedding, which was pretty hard, but I don't think to the extent that Carl was feeling, of course. But it just so happened that this day my pace had kind of kept up with Zon, and I think we had stopped a couple of times at different places here or there to either check our feet or get water. And yeah, it just so happened that we were walking together a lot this day. And it kind of seemed to me that she was just going to be a part of the group. I think that first meeting of her at Casa Banderas, we also got to know her pretty well. She was it just seemed like she was 100% authentic. She was just who she was. She didn't care. I don't know if it's just the breed.
Very similar to Jacoby, yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it's just the breed of South Africans, that they're just very themselves, which I absolutely adore. That they are that kind of people. I don't know if I'm just generalizing, but it seems like if we've met a couple of them, you know, and they're both just very who they are.
Straight shooters.
It's just total straight shooters. I absolutely love that in somebody. So Zon was very much the same way, and it was really cool getting to know her a lot more with walking with her that day. I heard her story about, you know, why she was walking the Camino. She had recently lost her husband and was dealing with grief, and she had quite the story to tell, and she had 3 amazing daughters, and their stories were just as powerful with what they've been through, and they just seemed like kind of like the light of her life, I guess. She just it sounded like she adored her daughters so much, and with reason. But yeah, this was walking into Galicia, or we're still in Galicia, but it became more apparent because these eucalyptus trees started popping up, and these big eucalyptus forests, and the smells were amazing. And just the feel of Galicia started becoming more and more fixture of these walks each day. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially, like coming from the Meseta where everything's so barren and exposed, and then all of a sudden you're in these just like lush, vibrant, lush green forests with eucalyptus trees, and it's just...
There's actually humidity in the air, and it felt fresh.
Quite the change of terrain. But yeah, we ended up stopping in this little town for coffee and breakfast called Porto Marin. And so we just popped into this cafe and just happened to see our Adelaide Aussie friend John sitting there as well. So we kind of connected up with him and sat at the same table and caught up. And it was not even a minute later, we see Monica, who we hadn't seen for a while now, walking down the street. We saw her from inside through the window. And she was walking with this guy, and so they popped in, and I guess she had kind of explained the guy was from Ohio, but she wasn't really jiving with the guy, but the guy was kind of clingy, it felt like.
Yeah.
So when the guy went to the bathroom, she kind of took that as an opportunity to leave.
She's like, "Oh, hi guys, bye."
She's like, "Okay, well, I have to go. I have to lose this guy." So
yeah,
it was a very quick encounter, and she ended up then leaving by herself very fast.
Which makes sense, you know.
I get it. Yeah,
we totally got it. We're like, okay, go.
Yeah.
There was, I actually think it's from this city that we walked into, Porto Marin, which I remember. We didn't write it down, but it jogged my memory. But it was
Do tell.
Yes, I will. But yeah, there was one moment where Carl and I think, walked in a little bit ahead of Jacoby, and we were we were turning this corner, and I believe that both of us did see this crazy flight of stairs. And it was so steep, and there were so many stairs, and we were just like, it's just like, at that point your body is pretty used to the walking, but we're not used to stairs.
Yeah,
and stairs are hard on the knees, and to see that flight of stairs, we were just like, fuck, man, this is gonna be hard.
And that we didn't, kind of, ready ourselves to tackle it from a distance. Yeah, we totally turned it from a corner.
Well, yeah.
I think I'd gotten there first, and I just was like, oh my God. And then I turned around and was like, I got to see Jacoby's face for when she sees
We both did this. And so I pulled out my camera because I was like, I want to see Jacoby's face when she turns the corner.
Yeah, what's her reaction going to be like?
So I captured the moment of her turning the corner, and she looks all determined, and she's got her trekking poles up. And then, you
Jaw
can
drop.
see the moment that she sees the stairs, and her eyes are just, looking up, because it's, straight up. And she's just like, oh, and her face was priceless because she goes, yay! Like, oh, goody! Facetiously. But it was
Totally
pretty damn funny at that
Was
moment.
that Sarria or was that Puerto Marine?
I want to say it was Puerto Marine, but that might have been the walk up those stairs. That was
think
really
it was
steep.
Sarria.
The one I'm talking about is Saria. We can just
Sarria. Just kidding. Later.
So yeah, but we caught up with I think Monica.
Yeah.
In a small town later, just before the end of the day, and she was back with the group at the same albergue. We all stayed at this one that was kind of crazy. We called it the Ant Albergue because there was this gigantic like iron or some sort of metal ant statue or sculpture. I don't know what the fuck you'd call it, but it's this giant ant figure out in front of it. And I think
there like business cards had little ants on it. And
and it was really cute. Actually,
it was nice. Yeah.
It was really nice. They had a little bar / like kitchen in the front.
They had a cool like courtyard dining area outside.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. And then like the wine that they served was really good, and the food was like just super. It felt like authentic home cooking. And yeah, it was pretty nice. We all just like had a dinner together. I think it was Zahn, Monica, Jacoby, Carl, and I, and we just really it was a nice little bonding dinner that we had there at the albergue.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the family was back together.
Yeah, it felt good.
So yeah, we were really liking our group. And on the inside, they had this big world map, and it had little pins in it from people from wherever. I felt like the pins were out, but we obviously there was this blank space where Boise, Idaho was. So I think I just wrote our names, Carl and Whit, where that was, and that's still there, I'm told.
Yeah, I saw it almost a year later.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, after dinner, I was kind of still having a hard time. I was feeling kind of bummed out and having a FOMO, homesick moment. Because given the time change, Walt's wedding was about to start. And so I was just kind of thinking about that and kind of having a hard time because there had been a lot of issues I'd been working through and past stuff I'd been dealing with that would come up. And then for Walt's wedding, and I was just kind of missing family at this point too. So
yeah,
I just had a bit of a hard evening, but I guess it was expected.
It's part of the game, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think FOMO, we learned, because I had no idea what that meant. Until,
people started, I think it was the Aussies thing.
No, it was Jacoby.
Was it her?
Yeah, Jacoby kept saying FOMO, and I was like, what the fuck is FOMO?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, you guys weren't around, and I was away, and I had fear of missing out. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it was funny because she would always be like, I want to walk alone, or I'm going to crack on. And then she'd be like, oh, I had FOMO. I'm like, well, then quit running off.
And I think I remember, I was like, what the fuck is FOMO?
That's what I thought. But then she
Did
told
I hear
us.
her right? Am I missing something?
No, yeah, she said FOMO a lot. Yeah. So I already talked about that shit. All right, so we're moving straight on to day 35.
So that's it, day 35.
And cut.
I guess that was kind of out of order.
I know, sorry. I kind of jumped ahead.
Doesn't matter.
So yeah, Portos to Boente. And it's 25.8 kilometers or 16
miles.
16 miles. That was 16 miles. So yeah.
And we got up super early this morning. It was still dark when we left, and it was super foggy. It was one of the few mornings where we had to use the headlamps.
Yeah.
And it was pretty heavy mist, or just it was really damp out.
Mm-hmm.
And we had stopped for coffee. And I think with us knowing that we were all getting to the end, and I had just been dealing with, like Walt's wedding, my brother's wedding, and just going through everything, I think we were all feeling a bit mentally drained at this point.
Yeah, I think all of us had a moment this day where we were all just like, man.
I think we'd all been working through issues, which is good and it felt healthy, but it definitely takes a lot out of you.
It does.
So I think the whole group, it felt like everyone was kind of going through.
But it's nice too because like when you're going through that stuff and you can tell that others are going through that stuff, there's almost this sense of like support.
Totally.
But it's, you don't even have to talk.
No.
It's like you just know.
Yeah.
So I remember like sitting down at a table or something, and I had seen like an expression on Jacoby's face where I was like, I've totally been there. And so you could like say maybe one or two words, but you didn't even have to like bring up the issues. You already knew that what they were going through as far as like mentally where they're at, and you need to like just chill, and you don't need to talk to anybody. You don't need to say anything. It was like, it's like this weird little support system where it's no words need to be said.
Yeah, well, that's why there's such like a strong and, you know, just connection with everyone, because you've been walking with these people and you see the expressions as you go throughout the Camino on their face, whether they're laughing or whether they're smiling or whether they're deep in thought or crying.
Yeah.
And you see that through everyone. Well, not everyone, but I mean the team that you make, if, you know, whoever that may be. So later on, it's like just looking at their face, you know exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's very apparent.
But it's nice, you know. It's totally cool. It's like this pilgrim thing, you know. Yeah. Like you wouldn't be able to fully understand it unless you've done it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain.
It is kind of hard to explain. I feel like I'm reiterating the same shit.
Right.
But. So there were still a lot of large crowds of new faces, and it was kind of hard to get used to because we've been walking for so long. And I know that it was weird because you kind of felt like the newbies that were there. I don't want to say you like held grudges to them, but
kind of though.
You were just kind of like, all right, move out of my way. I've been doing this for a fucking long time. I need to get past. Yeah, I mean, I tried to work past those feelings, but I would be lying to say if they weren't there initially.
Yeah, it's like you didn't want to have them.
No, not at all. I'm like, whatever. They can do this for the amount of time.
They want,
great.
yeah.
But it's like, move out of my fucking way. I've been walking for a long time. But it also felt weird because it made you feel that much more accomplished in what you did. Like, literally, I felt really proud of myself.
Yeah.
And I think it had been a long time that I hadn't had those kind of feelings towards myself.
Mm.
It's weird to say, but like, you know,
reconnecting with yourself.
Yeah. It's like this reconnection. And then also I'm really proud of what I'm doing, even if it is just walking each day.
Yeah.
You know, I've covered this like country. I've almost walked across this entire country.
Right.
That is something, you know. So you just felt pretty proud.
And I think, too, with just seeing all the new people, it was like you knew that you had gone through so much stuff and you were like forever changed from what you had accomplished. And with these new people, it just felt like they just wanted the compass. They just wanted that piece of paper.
Yeah, I got it.
And it was like with the 4 or 5 days that you're going to, you know, make it to the end, like you're not even going to work through stuff. It felt
it felt like
it's like you're not even going to get accustomed to walking yet, and you're already going to be done. So it just felt like it totally is generalizing, but it just felt like they weren't in it for what the Camino really stood for.
Either that, or I just felt like they were going to miss out on what the Camino is.
Yeah.
Like they weren't going to reap the rewards of going through those very crucial, I feel like, processes.
Totally.
Of the beginning, getting used to your body, the middle, like getting used to your mind and like working through issues. And then the end of like having that kind of spiritual, enlightened, kind of lifted state. This like almost blissful state. So it was this whole weird, but like you also are having this blissful state and this like enlightened state. So you kind of have to work through those initial human reactions of like those pity judgments, you know?
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting, but this was also a time that I found kind of funny that I was becoming more and more accustomed to my walk and my stride. This, like, at the end of it was when I actually started finding my groove as far as, like, my walk and my pace. And I just literally felt like my body was, comfortable with doing this. And I was going fast.
In your element.
I was in my element. I was like, all right, man, I'm ready to walk. Whereas before that, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sore when I wake up and okay, let's go. But I mean, it was just like, bam, I'm ready to go. And when I was walking, I felt like on a cloud or something. I don't know. It's hard to explain as well, but
you got to do it, folks. That's all it is.
I was like at the end of it, and I'm like, oh, I could just keep walking. Like, why does this have to come to an end? But it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So at this point, too, we booked ahead at this albergue in Boente. And it's a pretty good idea just because of the influx of all these large groups and because of just year to year, the number of people attempting to do this or joining this or trying to do this is just growing at a pretty large pace.
And that is the French route, though. That is the one that's growing, I think, the fastest and having the most amount of people right now. So
so it's a good idea for at least this point on from Sarrier. So is to start booking ahead.
It was getting busy.
Just because it's hard if you get to one place and they're all booked up. And then, you're pretty knackered by the time you get to where you mentally have it set that you're going to end is like where you want to end.
Yeah.
Versus if you get there and you're just burnt and then it's like, oh, well, sorry, you have to go 3, sometimes 5, 7, 10K to the next place. And you're like, are you kidding me? I was so ready to be done.
Excuse me? I have to walk how many more kilometers?
Yeah. And then, it could be like that place could be booked too. And you just keep having to
that's not
do
fun.
These little, well, not little, but it's like, at the end, every K seems like it's brutally long.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a good idea to start booking ahead from this point just to ensure that you have a place and where you're going to be getting to will have a spot available for you. And
I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but it is, I know we had mentioned that there are bikers, like bicyclists on this way. The pilgrims who are on foot are the ones who are always given priority at albergues before bikers, which is totally fucking right. It's a lot easier to get on your bike and travel 10K than it is to walk it. So they want to make sure that all the pilgrims who are on foot get a bed before bikers. So that's pretty nice that they do that at the albergues.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, we had some conversations with Monica, and she seemed, she was kind of relaying to us that she was going through some family issues, and she had to leave to get to Santiago a bit earlier just to end. So
yeah, we didn't ask questions. We didn't really want to get into it, and I don't think she was willing to share it at that time. I think it was something
totally
hard, which is totally understandable. We just were like, all right, well, you got to do what you got to do. It was unfortunate that we had to, not walk in together, but, that it was the way that it was.
It's the way life works.
We were in this albergue together, and when we had eaten, and we actually ate in this, little airtight, locked room that was sealed with AC. I remember this particular dinner because it was so nice that the entire albergue was pretty open and airy, but hot as shit. And so
it was super hot.
When we walked into their dining room and it was like this glass door that opened, it was this rush of AC, and we're like, AC? And
which is a rare thing,
it's
but
so
oh my
rare.
God, was it amazing.
Oh my God, it was so nice. And I think we all ate ice cream for dessert. We're like, yay! It was a pretty hot night. But I remember waking up and Carl wasn't in his bed and there was a note written on some toilet paper. And I was like, huh? Because I would always wake him up. So
yeah, she was usually my alarm clock. But at this point, I was gone and there was just a note.
Yeah, and so we'll have Carl tell his version of that story. But it would be day 36 that we would be walking into Pedruzo from Boente, and it's 26.1 kilometers. What?
That's an 8.
Oh, 28.1 kilometers. And that would be 17.5 miles. So.
Yeah, so basically my experience was this is where I ended up doing a night walk. Like she was saying, it was super hot and sweaty, and I woke up just after midnight. And I was just super uncomfortable. I mean, even with the window open, I was sticking to my bed bug sheet, which basically in Galicia, because of the humid conditions, bed bugs tend to, or, it can be an easy and quick problem for bed bugs to just go rampant.
They thrive.
They just thrive in those conditions. So everywhere you stay in Galicia has a disposable one-time use bed bug sheet.
Yeah.
So once you check in, you're given your bed bug sheet and you put it on the mattress. And when you're done, either you throw it away or, they'll say just leave it. And when they clean the next day, they'll toss it.
That's pretty nice that they take that precaution so that
totally.
It's not just like, oh my God, everybody has bed bugs.
And it was nice because you were like, oh, sweet. I'm not going to get a bed bug.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think so. But it was super hot and I was just sticking to my sheet and it was just gross. And I had noticed because we had the window open, and again, I think we'd mentioned this earlier, but they don't have screens on the windows. They're just open.
Yeah.
So mosquitoes were flying in, and I'd noticed I'd gotten bit on the hand, on the foot, and my chest. And I could still hear them buzzing around, but it's dark and you can't see them. And I was just not comfortable at all, nor did I want to go back to sleep and just get eaten alive.
I wonder if I got any bites that night, because I was
probably.
surprised.
I don't know how you could avoid that.
Because they love me.
Yeah. So I had gone to the bathroom since I was up, and then I was just sitting there and just in my uncomfortableness, and I was like, you know what? I was super awake at this point. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna do a night walk by myself. I think it was the four of us in the one room. It was, me, Whit, Jacoby, and Monica.
And Zon.
Was she in there? Oh, yeah, she was in there
Zon
also,
was there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as cars were driving by and making noise is when I would kind of rustle my stuff together and just to kind of mask any noise that I was making.
That was so funny.
So I could hear like
think of that. You're like, oh, car come. Oh.
So I'd kind of like freeze in my place, and then I hear a car coming and think, okay, this is what I got to do while the car's driving by. And I would kind of rush to, as quietly as I could, kind of get my stuff together.
Sneaky.
To eventually where I had everything together. So I went downstairs, went to the bathroom, and felt good. And I left at about 1:20 in the morning.
Do you still have that note?
Huh?
Do you still have that note?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I thought you kept it.
Yeah, so I left a note because I didn't want to just leave without any, info of like.
I've been like, what the fuck? You got abducted.
Yeah.
Abducted in the night.
So when I was in the bathroom, I just grabbed some toilet paper and I had that marker we had gotten in France still from when we were trying to hitchhike.
Mm-hmm.
And
handy.
So I basically wrote down what I was doing and that, I'm fine. I just decided to walk. So I'll see you at the end of the day when you guys get up. So yeah, I left and it was about 1:20 in the morning and just super dark, but it was clear as could be night, not a cloud in the sky, and the moon was out in full, so you could just see everything. And right as I was going through the town, there was this woman in this doorway of her house, and it was just this illuminated square doorway because everything else was dark. And she was just standing there. I feel like she was smoking a cigarette or she might have just been enjoying the night. And I don't know why this memory is just so vivid and stays with me, but it does. And I don't know, I think it's pretty cool because I just walked by and I just kept going on my way.
I envision her with a cigarette because it like illuminates her face.
Yeah, no, I feel like she wasn't, but I feel like she should have been. I don't know why. So
Why do we want everybody to smoke?
I don't get it. I don't know. It like adds to the element of
romanticism, kind of.
Yeah. So, but yeah, with it being as clear as it was, and with the moon out in full, there was a lot of coverage of trees where you kind of go through these tunnel bits, through this foresty bits, popping in and out. But in the trees, even as light as it was completely pitch black. And, the trees just drowned out any moonlight at all. So I had to use my headlamp. It was because I had my headlamp, but, and I would keep seeing like something dart out of the forest. It wasn't even like a figure because it was so dark, but all I saw were these glowing eyes and they would just point and look at me and then they'd dart back off. And I was like, I don't even know what is out here.
What was that?
I had to keep reminding myself that, there was nothing, there's no cougars or anything. There's no bears. There's no, wolves or something.
If we were in the Pacific Northwest, that would be a totally different story.
Freaked. Even still, I was pretty spooked and creeped out. But I just kind of had to keep reminding myself that there's nothing.
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna
be
okay.
Big concern out here. So
Yeah.
I was guessing it was just cats.
Yeah, there were a lot of them.
Which I'm sure any, if not all, that's what it was. But I mean, I couldn't tell all because it was so dark. All I saw was glowing eyes. Yeah, so I started also hearing, because it was dark and there's no one out. I mean, it was just, you could hear everything. Just sound was amplified. And I could hear in the distance this music playing. I was heading in the general direction of where it was, but it took, hours to get to it. I mean, that's how, far sound traveled in the still of the night. And so I eventually got as close as the trail led me to it. And my guess is it was a wedding, but I wasn't really sure. It was late at this point too, and the sound was super loud.
Well, they
could have just boomed through the countryside. Yeah, and
they start partying at 11 or later.
So yeah, I don't know what it was, but I guess it was a wedding. And then there was fireworks too that I could hear popping off, and then I could see them too in the distance. So I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was some sort of small festival or something.
Could have been. They like their festivals.
Yeah. So I ended up passing through this little town called Ribadiso. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's how it looks like it sounds.
Yeah.
And there's this little creek, and I crossed this little tiny bridge, and all of a sudden I look to my left, and there's some trees, and there's this figure in a hammock, and I was like, oh my God, it's Spencer. Steven Spencer from the States, and he had just drawn his hammock between two trees right by the river there, and I just saw him snoozing in this hammock. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wanted to take a photo, but I didn't want to wake him up because it was pretty late too.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was kind of funny. So I kept going on. And
how'd you tell it was him?
He was in a hammock. I could see his face.
Oh, you could see his face. Yeah. I didn't know. I thought it was too dark or something.
No, because it was in this little town, it was right out in front of this other albergue that I found out later on, because Steve was inside the albergue.
Oh, gotcha.
So there was a light, and I could see that it was him.
Save some money, man.
Yeah. I don't know I think he didn't have to pay. So
I'm sure he would.
Plus, with it being right by this running little creek, I was like, oh, that's awesome.
That is sweet.
My thought was just oh, I hope he doesn't get eaten by mosquitoes, because that was my issue when I was leaving.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I'd noticed too that dogs are super sensitive to sound as well, and with me walking through, it would just set them off, and they would just bark, and even from far away they could hear me, and they would just start barking and would not stop.
Yeah.
And as soon as one would start, it would just send off the siren to all the other dogs in the neighborhood. So I felt like I was waking up the whole fucking town.
Yeah.
With getting these dogs going, which wasn't my intent. And I was trying to be quiet too, but kind of unavoidable, it felt like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going through these really small old towns, which were pretty cool, but at night it's a totally different setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a totally different experience because you don't see anyone out there, and it's really hard to follow the Camino markers on the trail and make sure you don't miss something, and because sometimes you'd be going for a while, and you're like, I haven't seen a marker for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I hope I'm still going the right way, and then eventually you'll see a yellow arrow or a Camino show, and you're like, oh, thank God, I'm still, heading in the right direction. Because if you're not, you're like, when's the point to turn around, to go back? Yeah. Am I just totally heading in the opposite direction?
Yeah.
So it was really reaffirming, and it just felt good to know that you were going still in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. You're still on the trail.
Yeah, and I had heard too, I think later on, after talking about my experience with some other pilgrims, but someone was saying that there's a whole group of pilgrims that walk the entire Camino in the night. And I don't know if there's a book or a website or something, but there's...
I think that might have been Steph, because she said that she walked at night a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, really?
Yeah.
That sounds so cool, but I never did it, because I just wanted to stay on my schedule. But,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess there's a whole group of pilgrims that just do it throughout the whole thing, through the night, which...
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's
even just the one night, it's a totally different experience.
It's a good time to walk, because you're not suffering from heat exhaustion, or just the sun and baking, and it seems like it could be a decent way to do it.
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. So, yeah, while I was walking too, I kept having these moments of, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just going to run with it, but it felt like, it was almost like a Ratatouille moment where the evil critic takes his first bite of the Ratatouille and it just like has this rush of like a nostalgic memory where it just like shoots him back into, this childish memory, which that's not what it was, but that's what it felt like, was that like my soul was being rushed back into my body. It just really hit me and I really felt like I was in the now, like I was just like as conscious as I've ever been. And I was just like in that moment. And this happened like 4 times and it was crazy. It was like, yeah, I don't know, like my soul just came all the way through my being and I was just completely awake and in the now. And I just couldn't believe what I was doing.
Was it like blissful?
It was blissful. I loved it.
Like
yeah, totally. It was just serene, totally content.
Yeah.
And it was like I could almost hear my soul coming into my body. And then when it happened, everything was just like dead quiet. And all I could hear was my feet walking on the ground over these like loose little rocky pebbles and my walking stick like sticking into the ground. And that was all I could hear. A lot of it too was about like what I was about to accomplish. And yeah, it happened like 4 times, but it was really intense and amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I ended up stopping. I had been walking for quite a few hours at this point, and there was this small, almost like a little castle-looking place, and it had tables and chairs outside still, and like they hadn't pulled them in or locked them up or anything. And it was right alongside the Camino, so I thought it was a good spot for a break. And so I just sat at a table, and I had like a power bar sort of thing and some crushed pastries that I had picked up.
Crushed?
So, yeah, I had like a box of pastries, and there were 2 left, but they had just gotten smashed in my bag. But
yeah.
I was like, whatever.
Can't be picky.
So, yeah. So I had sat down at this table, and I was just going to take a break and eat a snack of sort. And I saw that this sensor light came on from this cafe or whatever it was, and I was like, "What is that?" And I almost left because I thought it might be like someone coming out, like, "What's that noise?" And I was like, fuck it. If someone comes around, I'll just explain that I'm on the Camino. I'm doing this night walk, just what I was doing. I wasn't doing anything bad. I wasn't like disturbing anything or being loud. Yeah. But then I heard this barking and saw this huge Saint Bernard dog come around the corner, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I was like, "I hope this dog is friendly."
Gulp.
So I mean, this thing was a monster, and it started coming up to me, and as well as like I'm on his turf. This is his home. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, so I took part of my pastry and just like threw it on the ground in front of it as like a peace offering sort of thing. And so it ate it, and then it kind of just like sat there and chilled, almost just like feeling me out or something, and then just slowly walked back around the corner. And I was like, oh, thank God. I didn't know how bad that could have gone, because if it had attacked me, I didn't know. I didn't want to hurt it, but I couldn't defend myself. You would have
had to fight, I guess, yeah.
I'd like grab my walking stick just in case, but I was like, please don't let this happen. But it was all fine.
That's good.
Yeah, so I just continued on in the dark, and eventually the sun started to come up, and it started to get light just before this town called Salceda, where I had stopped at this table just along the way through this little town, because I still had the crap Camino book that I brought that, I found out while walking that it wasn't good, but any info would have been better than, not knowing what I was doing. I was just following markers. Yeah, it was no Brearley. I just kind of was like skimmed through it just to kind of get an idea of where I was or what was coming up. And at this point too, I started seeing pilgrims like popping out of albergues, like just about to start their day. And here I'd been walking all through the night. Yeah, so I didn't need my headlamp anymore, which was nice. I ended up stopping at this cafe and got a sandwich and a coffee. And then I found out that they didn't have Wi-Fi, because I'd wanted to message the girls, had you got my note? Are you up yet? How, what's the plan? And so I popped across the street to this other cafe that they did have Wi-Fi, but I didn't actually buy anything, but I did message Whit and Jacoby just to let them know, this is where I'm at. Did you get my note? Just to be clear, in case for whatever reason they didn't see it, I'm fine. I'm here, and I was doing a night walk. So
yeah, and I think that it was kind of weird getting up and obviously unsettling seeing that Carl wasn't in his bunk, and I was like, oh, what the shit? Because I literally was his alarm clock, and I think for almost the entirety of our trip, I was your alarm clock.
Yeah, pretty much for the most part, anyway.
So yeah, I like to be prepared, and I think I wake up easily, as opposed to.
I done good. I snuck out.
But yeah, he totally snuck out. We did not suspect anything or hear anything, so everybody was like, "What? Really?" And almost like it was weird. But I can kind of get where they're coming from. But the girls were more concerned for me. They were like, are you okay? Like, are you upset? Or are you concerned? And I'm like, no, I don't care. He left a note. It said that, he just was hot and he wanted to keep walking. So I was like, it was a little bit different not walking with you or waking up with you or getting going with you and stuff. But I understood. And I was like, okay, whatever. And, they were just a little bit more concerned that I was going to be more concerned, but I think they were surprised with how kind of, I guess, independent we are from one another, but still, we're not like
reliant on,
we're not so codependent that we're like, oh my God, what's happening when he's gone? So, but yeah, so I started walking and it was still dark when I started walking. So I started with my headlamp, and there were, I think Jacoby and Zahn were paced together, so they were ahead of me a ways because they left before I did. And there were some times where, kind of like Carl was saying, there were long stretches of times where you wouldn't see an arrow or you wouldn't see a shell. So I remember a few times on this way that I was like, oh my God, am I fucking lost? And I think I turned back once, but then like had to reassure myself, no, just keep going, And so, luckily, I was able to stick with the path, and I remember that exact feeling of being like, oh, thank God, a yellow arrow, or, oh my God, there's a scallop shell, yay.
It's such a relief.
It is. It's such a relief. It's like one of those just like, oh, thank God, you're...
Because your worry slowly starts to build, and then as soon as you get that, it just like washes all that away, and you're fine again.
It's super nice. But I remember along this way, and it must have been the glowing eyes that you were seeing. There were several small little kittens that were amongst these forests that we were walking in, and you could tell that they were lost. And oh my God, my heart broke. I wanted to shove 4 or 5 little baby kittens in my backpack if I could, or hand them, hold them in my arms and just like walk with them, because I felt so bad. They just were like whining, and I think several of them kept following me for a little ways, and it broke my fucking heart. So I just cried for like half the morning, like trying to get away from these little kittens because I couldn't do anything. You feel like totally helpless, and you really hope that, maybe someone will find them and take them in, or maybe they'll be able to survive, but you have no idea. You just have to let go that nature is a cruel place sometimes, and you have no control over whether animals live or die. So it's just one of those reaffirming, moments of like, oh, death is a part of life, let go of it. But luckily, I passed over this bridge and into this town, and I heard the cacao, and so I was like, oh, good, coffee break. And so I went into where Jacoby and Zahn already were, and I think even Laura and Julian kind of were coming in when we were going out, but we all kind of had this breakfast and bonded a little bit more, and I think I walked more with Zahn this stage and got to know even more of her story, and it was nice that it was just one of those... You get to know people more and more the more you walk with them. So that was pretty cool.
So, anyway, when I left that night, or, whatever, 1:20 in the morning, my initial thought was that I would like finish the Camino, and I would get to Santiago. But as I was walking, I ended up changing my mind, which I was glad I did.
God, what the fuck? You're like, all right, wait, I'm in Santiago.
Yeah, I'm done. Where
I'm done. Where are you guys at? I'm like, what the fuck?
That would have made it a crazy long distance, though, too. And
I'm just a weird.
But I did change my mind, and I wanted to end it with how I started it, which was, alongside Wit.
Oh,
how sweet! What a nice guy! My God.
Just teasing you.
But yeah, I hadn't really thought about it until it started getting light out, because I could actually more so focus on my thoughts than being creeped out and trying to like figure out where the hell I was going, and that I was going in the right direction in the dark. But I hadn't remembered, I was pretty sure, but I wasn't 100% of where we had talked about staying for the next stage, which albergue or town. And my book wasn't help at all, my guidebook. I thought it was Salcedo, but which it turned out it was, but I wasn't sure. So I did mention previously that on the day getting into Santiago, I wanted to do, no more than 20 kilometers to get in. I wanted to have like an easy day into Santiago. And with where I was in Salcedo, I decided that I would continue on a bit further. I had seen that in my guidebook, whether it was right or not, that Salcedo, if we had stopped there, it still would have left 25 kilometers to Santiago. So I decided to keep walking. And after the realization of me, I was just like in the zone. I was just like with these spiritual moments that I've been having, and how grateful I was, and just this utter deep bliss that I was feeling. I was just super content and really, really in the moment. So from there on, I was just like enjoying every step, and I could see things now, because it's not dark and I'm not just in shadows. And I was just walking through these eucalyptus groves, and everything was foggy still, and the smell was so nice. And yeah, I was just totally enjoying every moment. I had made my way, and just really nice slow pace, into this next town called Pedroso. Pedroso? Is that what it is?
I think so.
All right. But it was still foggy at this point too. And I popped by this cafe that said no Wi-Fi, so I just kept walking towards the center of town, which was off the Camino trail, but not far. And the next cafe I stopped at actually had Wi-Fi, and I got into contact with Jacoby, which was nice. But I still hadn't heard anything from Wit.
Well, she had a cell phone. I don't have a cell phone.
Yeah, so
she could get a message from him
while walking
anytime. I can't. I have to be connected to Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So that was why she was kind of in communication with you.
And which was why I messaged her in the first place.
But it worked out because we were like in the same pace the whole day. So we just were like, oh, okay, he's here. We'll walk there.
Yeah. So it felt good just to be in connection, and just, they knew I was fine, so there was no worries there. And she had mentioned or, confirmed that we had planned on making it to Salcedo, and that Pedrosa was a bit further, but they were up for going the extra distance anyway, so it was fine. I don't know how
up we were for it, but we just had no fucking choice because you were already there.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit, okay, we got
you didn't have to.
Kilometers.
I mean,
no, I know.
You could have just had an earlier morning the next morning, and I could have just slept
No, we wanted to be with our pie.
So,
or my pie, but their buddy.
Yeah. So, I was in Pedrosa, kind of just looking around for an albergue. Pedroso. I like Pedroso. Pedroso. So I was in Pedroso. And I thought I had found this really nice albergue, but it didn't open until noon. It was only 10 in the morning at this point. So I had a couple hours to kill. So I just kept going up and down the main street, seeing if I could find anything nicer. I couldn't. I mean, that was the nicest one I had seen. So I decided to just wait it out at this cafe where I just had more coffee and a pastry as I needed it.
Jacked.
Yeah, I needed it. I was getting pretty tired at this point. It was a pretty long stage to do in the dark. In the bark.
In the bark of the tree.
Bark of the tree. I was doing this.
In the bark of the dogs.
So as I was just in the cafe waiting for the albergue to open, I just messaging a bit more with Jacoby. And yeah, so then I eventually just went back to the albergue around like 11:20, I think. And there was also at this point a family of 5 waiting out front too for it to open. So we were just kind of waiting out front for this place to open up. And it opened a bit early at like 11:40. And it was super nice, and I was so glad that I made my way here as well as picked this spot.
It was one of the nicest albergues that we saw.
Oh my God, I was like stoked just walking in.
Yeah.
But it was actually cool inside because it had AC like throughout the entire place. I mean, even where you slept, there was AC. I was like, oh, for real? This is going to be awesome.
What?
It was clean. There was like this Zen plant area.
Yeah, it was had this little water feature in the middle.
Totally.
That was surrounded
with
by
like
glass.
A skylight. And
yeah.
There was like this chill piano music playing.
Oh my God, it was
just
like
walking
heaven.
in, I was just like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
So I showered and did like the daily laundry stuff, the usual after walk routine.
Yeah.
And just kind of settling in, and other people started showing up around 2:00. And I remember Zahn was especially excited about this place I picked, and she was just like, "Oh my God, this place is lovely!" And so, I mean, I was stoked too, but she was especially excited, and just knowing that we were this much closer to Santiago, and the next day was going to be more of a breeze, was a good feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, do you want to
go ahead?
Okay,
yeah,
because you've talked about this.
I'm
like, hey, motherfucker. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, so we had everybody was in this town. It was pretty cool because we knew that, the next day was going to be all of our walk into Santiago.
Yeah.
Because it was short
Final
enough.
day.
So it was cool that everybody was there staying in this one town. And it was me, Carl, Jacoby, Spencer, and Steve, and Zahn, and Laura, and Julian. I think they were staying somewhere else, and I don't know that they had dinner with us, but we saw them, and we're like,
they were still in Pedrosa.
And so, yeah, we all had dinner together at this one cafe across the road.
A big table outside, so we were all at this big table.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. And so I remember there was this one waitress was a little bit snarky, but in a good way, not in a way that we were like, hey, what the fuck you doing? But in a way that was, kind of funny. And she was slightly flirty with Carl, which was kind of fun, too. Because it was just funny seeing you kind of get hit on by a waitress who was also snarky. But, so the dinner was pretty good. And I think that all of us, had a good old night. And I even remember, I think Steve paid for the whole thing.
Steve paid for the entire meal for everyone.
He's such a nice guy. And, yeah.
I couldn't, yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
It was a big group, too, man.
It was a big group.
But yeah,
he
thanks,
didn't have
Steve.
to
That
do
really...
That. Yeah, and so he was even buying us bottles of wine and stuff, and
yeah, it was no holding back.
No,
I think too because it was the last
Yeah.
night before at Santiago.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, as we were eating dinner, we saw Monica just up the road a bit, and she had she popped out of somewhere. I don't even remember where, but all of a sudden we just saw her, and she had her backpack, and she was hopping in a cab.
Yeah, we were all kind of Monica, we waved.
We're all here. And then she just popped in a cab and bounced.
It seemed like she was kind of in her own world. It almost felt like she was flustered, or it could have had something to do with what she was dealing with at the time. But we had no idea. We were just like, "Hey!" And then she was like, gone.
Didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of weird.
It was just weird, yeah.
But we knew she was dealing with shit, so we were just like, okay, well, hopefully she's okay, and whatever she's dealing with, she'll get done.
Yeah, whatever it was. I mean, that's her thing.
Yeah, but I think we found out later that because she had to rush to Santiago to deal with the family issues, to get out of town fast enough, she took a cab that was just a little bit closer to the finish line and then walked the rest of the way into Santiago that night. So we had found that out later.
But yeah, during dinner, once, we had eaten and everyone just kind of hanging out, I was struggling super hard to stay awake because I was just super exhausted from the lack of sleep. And
you were up for how long? 2 days?
Oh my God, out for 2 hours or if
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
Maybe an hour and a half of sleep or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, for how many kilometers or miles I'd walked collectively over the past 2 days on top of that.
Yeah.
It was easier early on when people were arriving and there was a bit of excitement in the air, and it was just being more social. But at this point, I was really fading. I just crashed out super fast.
Yeah, and I remember we had gone back to our albergue, and Jacoby and I were still up and, you know, like having maybe another glass of wine or something like that. And we went out on the patio there, and we saw Cloud again, who was our little French philosopher guy that we walked with for like half a day or something, and we had some deep conversations with him, so we were happy to see him again, and we chatted with him for a bit, and just had like another bonding moment, and kind of this you know, realization that it's coming to an end, and almost like a bittersweet moment where we were really happy that we were able to share the experience together, and that we had bonded so much, but also kind of like, oh, fuck, this is coming to an end. And so that night was pretty cool, but also I had gone to sleep and not realized that the next morning I was going to wake up feeling absolutely ill.
Yeah.
So that was not cool.
I woke up just refreshed and just super stoked on everything.
Yay.
I think too, because it was so cool inside, and I could actually sleep inside my sleeping bag versus laying on top of it.
Yeah.
I mean, this had only happened like 3 or 4 nights that I actually was able to sleep inside my bag because of how cool it was versus just laying on top and sweating for the entire Camino. Yeah. So,
but yeah, this next day is our walk into Santiago.
July 1st, 2015, day 37.
Yep, 19.8K or 12.3 miles. And, yeah, I woke up and I was literally running back and forth to the bathroom because I was physically ill. I couldn't eat anything this morning because it was just going to come out of me one way or the other. And I was running on complete empty. And this was not my ideal way to walk into Santiago, the finish line. But yeah, so I was dealing with a lot of that this morning, which was not particularly fun or enjoyable.
Yeah. And then at the start, too, I know that Jacoby had mentioned that she had wanted to walk into Santiago by herself. Which
understandable.
Totally understandable. I think she started by herself, too,
you
know, so... But she had just kind of relayed that. I think she left... a
little earlier.
Just a bit earlier. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the day started walking through this really cool eucalyptus section.
That was cool. I remember that.
Yeah. Super pretty. Mm-hmm. And then we stopped at this cafe that was just after, there was a tunnel that went under the road of the highway, and it popped up, and there was this big cafe with a huge seating area. I think it was a pretty popular spot for Pilgrim State breakfast and such. So Jacoby was sitting there too, so we all kind of met up and had a bite to eat. Yeah. Except for Whit didn't have too much.
I didn't have much. I might maybe like fit in half a banana or something like that, but it was not much more than that. Yeah, and for me, it was really hard because, like I had said the day before, I had kind of gotten my stride. I was feeling really strong, really good, and literally I had the breath just knocked out of me. Like, I could not have felt more weak this day. I was literally running on empty because I had no food in my system. And while you're walking these long distances and still with like a pack on your back, you're burning so many calories that you need to keep replenishing those calories. Like, you need to feed yourself energy. And I had none. And so literally I felt like I was digging from the deepest bits. And this might be TMI, but several times along this walk, I had to literally stop and clench because I felt like I was going to shit my pants. It was horrible. Like, this was one of the worst days I have ever experienced especially on the Camino, if not ever. It was hard.
Yeah. But, so after the cafe bit, Jacoby kind of left first. And then we didn't see her until we were in Santiago.
Yeah, and
at this point.
I remember this day. I can't remember. I mean, I'm sure I was in just a shit mood because I was, was going through what I was going through. And I think there was a moment where I might have snapped at you, and then you snapped back, and we just ended up getting into a little tiff.
I think for just how high I was and for how low you were, it just kind of like didn't mesh. So
yeah, for sure.
It was almost inevitable that, it's just going to turn into a bit of a tiff.
But then, I mean, because I knew we were walking into Santiago, I wanted to just amend. But I think because the tiff had happened, that brought you to a, oh, fuck, kind of low.
Well, I think because you were in such a down mood and I had been trying to like lift your spirits and stay in this good mood, and you just weren't having it because you were so in this shitty state.
Yeah.
That I was like, you know what, that's fine. I'm over it. I'm just going to start focusing on myself then and just enjoying the moment. And yeah, it just turned into...
Well, I guess you could say that, but I was trying to, after the fact, lift you back up, and you weren't having it either. So, I'm just saying, you put yourself in a low, and you couldn't pull yourself out.
I tried to focus on myself, and I was like, you know what, that's fine, I'll give you space, and I want to be in my own happy world, and you can be in Shitsville and deal with your stuff.
Okay, well.
Anyway.
We can both disagree, or agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Anyways, so while walking into Santiago, it was not our ideal or
we weren't in the best place.
expected place that we were going to be in. But yeah, I think that while we were getting into Santiago, it was this kind of vibrant energy. Santiago is a very special place. I think just because it is the finish line of this pilgrimage. It is where so many people look forward to getting after these long days, weeks, months, or however long they've taken to get to this place. It is where they have decided to end their pilgrimage, or sometimes people continue on, and we sure did, but this place in particular signifies this end. So it is this very vibrant and enthused kind of energy that all these people are experiencing all at once.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. It was definitely electric. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's so deep, it's hard to put into words.
It is so deep. If you don't want to walk the Camino, maybe just travel to Santiago to kind of get the feel for this place, because it is one of a kind.
I almost feel like you have to walk. You have to...
Of course,
put forth the energy to get there.
Well, for sure, but I think that you can't go there and be completely blind to it. Maybe you could, but just to experience the energy there is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there was this bridge that you pass underneath to get to the square, whereas that's where everybody calls the finish line, because it's right in front of the cathedral there.
Yeah, it's a big open square.
Yeah, and so we pass under this bridge, and there was a woman who was pregnant, and she was she had a can or something, or maybe her hands out to ask for money or donations or something. So at that moment I just felt very giving and wanting to give my money. So I gave her whatever euro I had in my pocket, but it's weird. You never really, you never know, is this authentic? I know that in Asia we experienced a lot of people who
just scams,
and so a lot of people told us, do not give them money because they are working for somebody who's fucking corrupt, and have these women go around the streets, with maybe babies or just begging, and this, it all goes to this one rich, greedy fucker. So,
it's like pimping out people in a different way.
It's fucking horrible. Weird. Yeah, I agree. But so I had no idea, what situation this woman was in, or, what motives or whatever. But I just gave her money. But, it's kind of weird that I come back a year later and I had walked the Camino again and I saw her under the bridge again, And she was still carrying the bump.
She was still apparently pregnant.
She was still pregnant.
Like, well, it's been...
So I questioned it a little bit that time,
months.
and I don't think I was feeling as giving.
Yeah.
So, but anyways.
Yeah, so we had got into the plaza, the square of the cathedral, and I remember there was this strong lack of emotion that I had. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel content. I wasn't happy. I wasn't bummed or sad. It was weird. I was just like void of any emotion.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same.
I noticed that on one side of the entire face or facade of the cathedral, there was just covered in scaffolding, which I hadn't expected. And
does facade mean fake?
Facade is like the facing or like the front.
Is it?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I
don't think it is.
It is, totally.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I think, like, to put up a facade is to fake something.
Meanings.
Maybe it is. But I think it's facade.
I think it's
Am
facade.
I wrong? Okay.
I'm going to plow ahead.
No, sorry. I'm just like, I had that in my brain and it wouldn't go away. And I'm like, wow, what is it?
Anyway,
Continue.
On the front of the cathedral, there was scaffolding.
To the important part.
Which I had seen photos of Liz and Christy, and they had just been there like a few days before. Yeah. And there was no scaffolding.
We followed them the whole way.
Yeah, because they had been ahead. So they were just a few days ahead the whole time because they had, like we had mentioned previously, they had booked everything ahead. So we're like, oh, cool, they made it. There's a cathedral. No scaffolding, but we walked in and it was covered on one side.
What?
Another thing was like we didn't see any familiar faces inside the square, but it was full of people. And I mean, there are so many different routes that come together. You know, there's like the Portuguese route or the North route.
Yeah, the De Playa.
Via de Playa or something.
The one that goes up through like southern Spain.
So anyway, they all come to meet at this one place. So there's all these different pilgrims. But we had been on it for so long and didn't see anyone. It was weird.
We're like, yay, we're here. And looking around. And then there's like, where's our family?
Where's our Camino
We thought maybe to bump into Jacoby or Zon or Monica or somebody. And then it was just us. And we're like, oh.
There was this small, like, trainy sort of car. It was like a vehicle, but shaped as a train. You know, something you'd see at, like, Disneyland, where they would drive around and there'd be, like, these little cars. And they were dropping people off at the base of the cathedral. And we're like, you couldn't even walk from your hotel or wherever you're staying to see this place. So you had to take this little thing. You know, we've been walking now 37 days to get here, and you can't, I don't know. So I was just like, there's a lot of expectations that were dashed, and which was a big lesson, you know, just to not have any expectations ever.
Yeah, I didn't really care about the train thing as much as you did, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just this initial feeling, but in hindsight, it was really about the journey of getting there and not the destination.
Well, and that's sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But yeah, I had thoughts like early on, maybe a week in, about just getting into the square in Santiago, and I would start to tear up and get emotional just about thinking about getting there.
Yeah.
And now that I had walked in and I didn't feel anything. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah, well, I mean, after all of our travels were, completed, it is really about the journey. And when you do expect things, you are going to be let down because they are never going to be the way that you expect.
They won't be met.
You have quite this imagination, and you can assume anything is going to be a particular way from what you've heard people tell you about it. But everybody has different, they're all going into it with a different perspective. So to try to expect something to be a certain way is just unrealistic. So I think that for us, we were expecting it to be this very big emotional moment and just like, oh, wow, we're here, yay, and big and over the top. But to expect it and then to walk in, you're just like, oh, well, this isn't the way I had thought.
Yeah.
And so I think that each of us were kind of experiencing that. And I know that from me, after the day that I had, I was just like, oh my God, I'm here. I made it. I need to sit down. I'm fucking exhausted. And so I think that we had sat kind of up against this wall or whatever. And we both took off our shoes and socks and just were kind of chilling. And me, I was sitting there and I kind of had my knees up and my arms resting on my knees. And I was just kind of watching the pilgrims, you know, kind of emotionless, like Carl was saying, just being like, oh, this is it. Okay. And I remember something kind of fluttering or buzzing in front of my face. And I'm like, what is that? And I thought it was a fly or a bee or something. So I just kind of like, I swatted and then it flew back, and I swatted again and then it kind of flew back. And I was just like, what is this? And it had landed right on my hand, and it was this little butterfly, this little like brown kind of purple-ish butterfly. And I had never had like a butterfly land on me before, but it had just sat there and it was like staring at me, which I was like, this is odd. And it had like rushed back this, like it flashed before me the entire pilgrimage that I had just walked and how many times I had seen butterflies. And to me, it was almost like a switch that flipped where it was just like, everything's all right. Just be cool with the moment, be chill with the fucked up day that you just had. Think about the journey. And literally every time that I had seen a butterfly or butterflies, it like lightened my mood and allowed me to just be okay with the moment. So it was, I don't know, it was like this really emotional kind of cool moment that I had. Sorry to get emotional. It was special. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the exact same thing happened, and I just started sobbing. And it was like this release of emotion or expectation or any built up feeling that I had, and that connection with that tiny little creature was just like love. Like for me, it was just this completely okay to feel anything that I did. And it really did take me back to how amazing that trip, that pilgrimage, that journey was. It was probably one of the most enriching experiences that I've ever had. And yeah, it was just amazing that for me, I didn't see that until this little thing like had this moment with me. And to me, that's spirit, that's love, that's this universe, that's this connection that we are kind of all one with each other and in it together. And it was a pretty significant moment to just be like, hey, nope, get out of your little expectation funk and allow yourself to just be. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty amazing. So, pardon my emotional outburst. But yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have that. I was just like, after a minute, I think it'd been like 15, 20 minutes, I was just ready to go.
Yeah.
We still hadn't seen any faces, and after just witnessing what I had witnessed, I was just like, I was ready to, you ready?
Yeah. You ready? Let's go.
So,
I'm like, oh!
So we had left the plaza, the square, to basically, try to find a albergue. And there's this lady that came up to us as we're obviously pilgrims, and she was like, oh, do you need a place to stay?
It was almost like she saw us from across the way, and she was like, she gave us like a nod, or like, hey, you, come here.
It just felt very secretive, and like we're doing something sneaky around.
And she almost like whispered it to us, you need a place? And we're like, what? Yeah?
Yeah, we're looking for a place. She's like, I got a place.
I got a place.
It's down this way. You want to follow me? So we were like, all right.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's see.
We knew how hard it was going to be to find a place there to stay because it's this influx of pilgrims and so many people need a place to stay. And so we were like, oh, well, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll need a place.
So we ended up walking, kind of meandering down the streets and alleyways, and took her what looked like her house, and she was like, so this is the bedroom and this is the kitchen, and we were like, I think I remember it being like a twin bed or something. She's like, you can sleep on the floor, and you're like, fuck this.
And we kind of went in, it was almost like a seedier part of town, which I was like, I didn't expect this to be here in Santiago.
Yeah, it was weird. It didn't feel right.
Felt like a drug deal.
We were just like, you know what? Yeah, we'll get back to you.
Thanks for showing us this.
We're going to take off now.
We'll go check out other options.
Yeah, so it didn't feel right, and it didn't look right. You know, it's like, I'm not sleeping on the floor after all this.
we want to, like, treat ourselves to a nicer stay.
We earned, a bit of comfort for tonight.
Bit,
so
I mean, fucking Zahn stayed in the Parador for sake.
Which is like the nicest place there is.
It was awesome.
I think Monica did too.
Or no, that's what I meant. It was Monica that stayed in the Parador. I don't know where Zahn stayed.
So anyway, we left and ended up finding a different place. Yeah. Which was way nice.
Way nicer, yeah.
Definitely, not the Parador or some 5-star thing, but, we had a nice bed, our own room.
Yeah.
And, it was really comfy and clean.
Yeah, but that night everybody was in town, so it was kind of like a party, man. Let loose. Let's all celebrate. And some people had to leave the next day, or some people weren't going to continue on. So we wanted to make the most of this moment and try to hook up with as many people as we experienced this awesome way with. So
we had the crew.
Zahn
had recommended this tapas bar.
It was awesome.
So we all met there. So it was the both of us. There was Jacoby, Monica, Steven Spencer.
I don't know what
was that.
Yeah, Spencer.
Steven
you might want to consider changing your name to Spencer because it sounds odd.
And then Canute had even met us there. Our pal John from Adelaide was there. Laura and Julian. Gemma, Dave, and Amber were there.
Yeah,
there was
everybody.
Ashley
seriously.
from Brisbane. Zahn was there. Santiago was there with his family.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this other couple there, Rick and Mary, that we had kind of crossed back and forth for a while. Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty awesome.
So we all had like just this huge table with everyone.
Oh yeah, we just like filled up half of this tapas bar, and we were just like going to town on the food and the wine and getting kind of rambunctious a little bit.
Relishing in the moment.
I think Spencer might have drank a little bit.
Spencer was letting loose.
He was letting loose. It was fun though. Him and I guess Laura had gone to the same college, so he was like singing their like alma mater or fight song. I don't know. I never went to fucking college. I don't know what the hell. But yeah, so they were like singing some school song and getting into it, and it was pretty cool. But yeah, and then I think later on we went out to a bar even.
Yeah, I had a really good chat with Dave, Amber's boyfriend, and we had just really hit it off and gotten this, deep and meaningful conversation about kind of his story, which was awesome. And
it was cool.
Felt really cool that he was sharing that. And
it was nice to reconnect with Gemma too, because we hadn't seen her for several weeks. It seemed like
it had been
since the
while.
Beginning.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh, you're here again. And then,
after dinner, we were still in party mode, and a lot of people went back to wherever they were staying. But we stayed out with Jacoby, who I think she left after a little while. She didn't stay out as late. But Gemma, Dave, and Amber and us definitely painted the town red or whatever.
Yeah, and this was one night that kind of stood out in my mind because I didn't partake in the booze as much as I normally do because I just felt so shitty that day. Yeah. So I was
probably
more...
Good plan.
Oh, fuck yeah. But I was more sober than, I would have been otherwise. But Carl got a little bit tipsy. And I remember he didn't remember where to go to get home. So I was like,
Santiago's got a lot of little windy streets.
So this was
easy to get lost.
New to me. So I was like, no, follow me. And so we got back to our albergue that we had booked. Or I think it was a hostel.
Yeah, I think this was a hostel.
But Carl... in our hostel, the window got left open or something, and there were a couple mosquitoes that flew in, and Carl was determined to smush them with his walking stick on our very high ceiling while standing on the bed. And he was a little tipsy, so he was tipping. And it was pretty funny because he would have the stick and you'd hold it really close to the mosquito and almost have it and then go bam on the ceiling. And I would be like, he's making this really loud noise. I'm like, get down. What are you doing? Who knows who's above us? And hearing these little gung and gung. And I'm like,
Gung?
Well, I don't know what to say. I don't want to be like bang into the loud microphone. But yeah, so.
Yeah, it was just like a vaulted ceiling, and I could see him up there, and I was like, I'm not getting bit by mosquitoes. We had shut the window and I think put on the AC. I think they had opened the windows.
They might have, yeah. I think when they were
we were like, damn it, we closed it on purpose because you guys don't have screens either. So I was just determined to smash these little bloodsuckers before they just ravaged my body throughout the night. But yeah, it wasn't happening.
Well, that was our walk into Santiago, and I think on next week's episode we're going to be having the continuation to the coast.
Yeah, it's kind of a small coastal loop.
Yeah, and that will actually be our end to the Camino.
Yeah.
It'll be next week's episode.
Yeah. But that was us getting to Santiago.
Yeah, thanks for listening, you guys. Yeah. My bladder is about to explode. I have to pee.
The verge of exploding.
Oh my god. Me first. So. All right. Well, thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, bye. You say something. Ew.
No, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week, guys.
All right, bye.
If you liked what you heard, subscribe to our podcast.
If you feel inclined, leave us a comment or review. Tell someone you know who might enjoy to have a listen, and feel free to share on your choice of social media.
If you want to know more about us or see any photos of our travels, you can check out our website at trailofbeans.com.
We also have a Facebook page where you can follow us on our upcoming adventures and get updates along the way, which can be found by searching @The Bean Trail.
We'll be back next week. Same beans,
same podcast.